My name is Leona Walker. I'm 15 years old now, and I was 15 when all of this happened, when my family decided I was the easiest thing in the world to throw away. If you'd asked my parents to describe me back then, they would have called me a handful, dramatic, trouble. If you'd asked them about my younger sister, Brianna, they would have softened without meaning to. Like her name alone made them feel proud. My dad believed respect only traveled one direction, toward him. You didn't earn it by being heard. You earned it by being quiet, by taking whatever tone he gave you and acting grateful he spoke at all. When his voice wasn't enough, he used his belt. Not often, not all the time, just enough that the threat always lived in the air like static. My mom followed his lead like it was survival. She wasn't stupid. She saw what he did to me, what he didn't do for me, what he did for Brianna without thinking. But she lived inside his rules like a house with locked doors. If she pushed back, the storm turned on her. So she learned how to nod, how to lower her eyes, how to say, he just wants what's best. And Brianna? Brianna was the best. At least, that's what they told themselves. She could set a pot of popcorn on fire, and Dad would laugh like it was a funny story for later. She's learning, he'd say, ruffling her hair. I forgot to mow the lawn once, and suddenly I was lazy, irresponsible, heading nowhere. If she got an A, it was because she was brilliant. If I got an A, it was because the test was easy. If she cried, the whole house stopped moving. If I cried, Dad called it manipulation. It had always been unfair, and I'd always felt it in my bones. But there's a difference between feeling overlooked and realizing you're disposable. I didn't understand that difference until that night. It started like any other night, quiet, ordinary. The kind of night where you almost forget the rules of your own house because nobody's breaking them. I was in my room with my laptop, old, slow, the kind that sounded like it was breathing hard just to open a browser. I was half doing homework, half downloading music like it mattered, like having a few songs saved somewhere meant I wasn't trapped. The clock on my screen read 11:14 when my door slammed open so hard it hit the wall. My parents stormed in like I'd pulled a fire alarm. My mother's face was flushed, eyes bright and watery, like she'd already decided I was guilty and was grieving the version of me she pretended existed. My father's forehead was tight, veins raised, jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth would crack. And behind them was Brianna, wobbling in the doorway like she might faint from sadness. He stole it, she sobbed, then corrected herself like she remembered who I was. She stole it. I saw her take it from Dad's wallet. My brain stuttered. What? I sat up so fast my laptop slid off my knees. Dad didn't wait for answers. He moved like a man who'd been waiting for permission to explode. He yanked my desk drawer open, rifled through my notebooks. He flipped my chair. He grabbed my pillow and threw it to the floor. He lifted my blanket like he expected to find a weapon. Then he snapped the pillow up again, higher, and something crumpled behind it fell onto my sheets. Cash. Crumpled bills. A wad thick enough to make my chest go hollow. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I just stared, like my eyes could reject what they were seeing. I told you, Brianna wailed, tears streaming perfectly down her cheeks. She pointed at the money like it was proof she'd saved the family from me. My voice came out thin. I didn't do that. That's not mine. Dad picked up the bills, shaking them in front of my face. You think we're stupid? He snapped. You think we don't notice things missing? What things? I demanded, panic rising. I haven't taken anything, I swear to you. He stepped closer, finger jabbing into my chest, like he wanted to leave a bruise without leaving evidence. You've been embarrassing this family for years, he hissed. And now you're stealing from your own father? I'm not, my throat burned. Why would I steal when I've been saving money? I babysit, I mow lawns. Ask Mrs. Novak next door. Ask anybody. Enough, he roared. The sound rattled the glass in my window. I flinched before I could stop myself, and that flinch, God, I could see it in his eyes, only made him angrier. He turned to my mother like he expected backup, like he expected her to do what she always did, repeat him. She didn't even look at me. She stared at the floor and said, Leona, why would you do this? That was it. That was the question. Not, did you? Not, what happened? Just, why would you? Like the crime was already a fact. Like the only missing piece was my confession. Behind them, Brianna sniffled loudly, wiping her cheeks with her sleeves like an innocent child. But I saw it, clear as day. A tiny flicker at the corner of her mouth, a smile she couldn't fully hide. Dad grabbed a trash bag from my closet like he'd been keeping one ready for this moment. He started shoving my clothes into it, shirts, jeans, everything, like he was clearing out a room after a death. Dad, please, I begged. Listen to me. She planted it. She's lying. Brianna's sobs turned into a new performance. I'm scared, she whispered dramatically. She gets so angry. What if she hurts me? The words cut deeper than the accusation. I have never laid a hand on you, I said, stepping forward, shaking. You know that. But she didn't meet my eyes. She just kept crying, like the truth didn't matter. Dad swung his glare at me. That's it, he said, voice low and final. Out. Now. He shoved the bag into my arms. The plastic was thin, stretched tight with my life. He grabbed my backpack, dumped it onto the bed, and started stuffing it with whatever he could reach. My mother opened her mouth like she might say something, then stopped when Dad shot her a look that could have turned her into stone. I watched her fold back into herself. I watched her choose him again. Brianna leaned against my doorframe, acting small, acting hurt. But she was watching me like she was watching a show she'd paid for. Dad dragged me down the hallway. I stumbled, barefoot, trying not to drop my bags. When we reached the front door, he yanked it open. The night air slapped my face like ice. I grabbed my sneakers from the mat before he could kick them out too. You don't come back here, he said, voice flat, until you admit what you did and apologize to your sister. I didn't do anything, I cried, throat raw. She's lying. She set me up. Don't you dare, he snarled. She's been nothing but good to this family. You're jealous, Leona. Jealous and bitter. The door slammed shut so hard the glass panes trembled. For a few seconds, I stood there, staring at it, waiting for the moment where someone's conscience kicked in, waiting for my mom to open it again, to whisper, "Come inside, we'll talk." It never happened. I sank onto the porch steps, shivering, trash bag slipping from my arms. The street was peaceful, quiet houses, soft porch lights, a normal world. And there I was, 15 years old, barefoot, holding my life in a plastic bag, exiled from the only home I'd ever known. It hit me then, sharp and clear. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't punished. I was gone. Brianna had their trust, their affection, their loyalty, and I was disposable. I stood up slowly, hands shaking, and stepped off that porch. As I walked into the cold night, one thought burned brighter than everything else. They chose her lies over my truth. And that's when I understood I wasn't just the family's problem. I had already been cut out of the herd. The first night, I didn't go far. I walked in circles around the block until my legs burned and my fingers went numb. I wasn't even sure where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay near the house. Not after the door closed like that. Not after my name stopped meaning anything inside it. I tried the park first. There were benches under a few trees, but the sprinklers had soaked everything. I hovered there for a while, hugging my backpack, pretending I was just passing time. Eventually, the cold sank into my bones, and I moved on. That's when I thought of Lena. She lived a few blocks away. We'd been friends since middle school, the kind of friend who knew when to stop asking questions. I stood on her porch in my sweatpants, trash bag hanging from my arm like a confession I couldn't hide. Her eyes widened when she opened the door. "Oh my God, Leona," she whispered, pulling me inside before I could explain. I told her everything in pieces. The accusation, the money, being thrown out. She didn't look shocked, just sad, like some part of her had expected this was how it would end for me. She gave me a blanket and a slice of leftover pizza. I slept on the floor, curled up like I was afraid to take up too much space. It was the best sleep I'd had in weeks. Her mom was kind, but not generous. The next morning, she pulled me aside while Lena brushed her teeth. "You can stay a couple nights," she said quietly, "but I can't afford another mouth to feed. You'll need to figure something out." I nodded and thanked her like it didn't hurt. On the third morning, she drove me to school early and told me I couldn't come back. That was it. I shoved my trash bag into my locker and pretended I had somewhere else to go. I didn't. I bounced from couch to couch for a few nights. A classmate let me sleep on their sofa. Someone else offered a basement just for tonight. Every favor came with an expiration date. No one wanted my family drama bleeding into their house. After a week, the favors dried up. That's when I started sleeping behind the gas station. There was a narrow nook near the dumpsters where the security light didn't quite reach. I waited until closing, then curled up with my backpack as a pillow. It smelled like oil and trash and old rain, but it was hidden, and hidden was better than nothing. I tried the library once, then twice. I stayed until closing, slipped behind a row of shelves, and curled up between history books like knowledge might protect me. The second night, a flashlight snapped on right into my face. "You can't stay here, kid," the guard said, not unkindly. "You gotta go." Hunger was worse than the cold. I had $40 saved from babysitting and mowing lawns. It disappeared fast. Cheap burgers, vending machine snacks, anything that didn't ask questions. After that, I skipped meals, drank water from fountains, pretended my stomach wasn't screaming during class. School didn't get easier. Brianna moved fast. By the end of the first week, everyone knew the story, her version of it. How I stole from our dad, how I was unstable, how my parents had to throw me out for her safety. She told it like a warning. Kids pulled their backpacks closer when I sat near them. Teachers watched me like I might snap. I saw it in their eyes, the quiet judgment, the warnings already planted. One girl moved her notebook when I sat down. "Sorry," she muttered. "I don't want my stuff stolen." The row snickered. In the hallway, a guy shoulder-checked me and yelled, "Watch your hands, thief!" I shoved him back without thinking. A teacher broke it up and pulled me aside. "One more incident," she warned, "and you're suspended." Not him. Me. Brianna ate it up. I caught her watching me across the cafeteria, smiling softly at her friends, then flicking me a glance with a smirk she thought I couldn't see. She looked lighter, freer, like she'd finally stepped out from under a shadow and pushed me there instead. By the second week, I was a ghost. I ate alone when I had food, sat alone when I didn't. I pretended I didn't care, but at night, curled up on concrete, it ate me alive. I thought about my family constantly. Not strangers, not bullies, my family. One afternoon, my dad found me. I was sitting on a park bench with my hoodie pulled tight when his headlights washed over me. He parked too close, stormed toward me like he was afraid I'd disappear. "Get in the car," he demanded. I didn't move. Now. "Not unless you admit Brianna lied," I said, voice shaking but steady. His face twisted. "Don't you dare talk about your sister like that. She's been through enough because of you." "Because of me?" I laughed, bitter. "She framed me." He stepped closer, finger raised like a weapon. "You're coming home. You're admitting what you did, or I'll call the police and tell them you've been stealing from stores. Begging. You want that on your record?" I stood up slowly. "I'm not coming back to be treated like garbage. Call whoever you want." For a second, I thought he'd hit me. Instead, he turned and drove off. That was when it sank in. He didn't want the truth. He wanted control. The next day, I went to the school counselor. I told her everything. The money, the lies, being kicked out. She listened with that careful, empty expression adults wear when they've already made up their minds. "Accusing your sister without evidence isn't helpful," she said gently. "Your parents are concerned about your behavior. Unstable." That was the word she used. I tried my aunt next. She told me she didn't want to get involved, suggested I apologize. I hung up before she finished. Then one night, while I sat behind the gas station sipping water from a bathroom sink, I heard the voice I hated most. "Wow," Brianna said lightly. "Didn't think you'd last this long." She stood there with a soda like she was just stopping by. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. She shrugged. "I got tired of being perfect. Now I don't have to try. Everyone already thought you were the screw-up. I just made it official." She leaned closer, smiling. "And if you keep talking, I'll make it worse." She walked away like she hadn't just threatened my existence. That's when I realized something that chilled me deeper than the cold concrete ever could. She didn't just want me punished. She wanted me erased. And by the third week, hungry, exhausted, invisible, I knew if no one was going to stand up for me, I would have to do it myself. By the third week, I barely recognized myself. My phone was dead. My money was gone. I hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, and my clothes smelled like rain, trash, and concrete, no matter how much I tried to rinse them out in gas station bathrooms. I dragged that torn garbage bag everywhere. Bus stops, parking lots, the edges of school grounds, like it was stitched to me. It wasn't even closed anymore. One side had ripped, and half my clothes stuck out like a warning label. Homeless. Problem. Lost cause. That night, it started raining again. Not a gentle rain. The kind that soaks straight through your hoodie and makes your shoes squish with every step. I walked for miles with nowhere to go, my bag growing heavier as the plastic tore more with each block. When half my clothes spilled onto the sidewalk, I dropped to my knees, scrambling to gather them like they were pieces of me. I ended up under the awning of a closed laundromat, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. That was my breaking point. I sat there thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I'd just fade out here and no one would even notice. That's when Lena found me. She came running up the sidewalk with an umbrella, hair plastered to her forehead, breathless like she'd been searching. "Leona, why didn't you answer your phone? I've been looking everywhere." "My phone's dead," I whispered. She crouched beside me without caring about the puddles soaking her jeans. "You look awful." "Thanks," I said, trying to laugh. My voice cracked instead. She pressed a crumpled envelope into my hands. "Take it." Inside was about $60, small bills folded and refolded. "I can't," I said automatically. "You can," she cut in. "It's my allowance. I don't need it. You do." I nodded, because if I spoke, I'd fall apart. Then she lowered her voice. "There's something else." My heart jumped. "What?" "Brianna was bragging at a party," she said quietly. "She told people she planted the money, that she set you up." My head snapped up. "She admitted it?" "Yeah, but no one believed her. They thought she was joking, showing off." Lena swallowed. "Some even said, even if it was true, you probably deserved it." The words hit like a punch. Deserved it. That night, sitting under that awning, something inside me hardened. If no one was going to stand up for me, I would. I cleaned myself up in a gas station bathroom as best I could, stuffed my damp clothes back into the bag, and I walked. When I turned onto my street, my chest tightened. The house looked the same. White siding, flower pots on the porch, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't been sleeping behind dumpsters while they ate dinner inside. I waited a long time before going up the driveway. Then I knocked. Hard. The door creaked open, and there was Brianna. Her eyebrows lifted into a smirk. "Well," she said softly, "look who crawled back." I shoved past her. "I'm not here to stay. I'm here to talk." "Leona?" My mom's voice echoed from the kitchen. She appeared with a dish towel in her hands, Dad right behind her, arms folded. "Out," Dad said immediately. "No," I replied, chest heaving. "You're going to hear me this time." He stepped closer, looming. "Watch your tone." "You threw me out with a trash bag because she cried," I said, voice rising. "You didn't even ask me what happened. Not once." "Because we know you," he snapped. "You've always been reckless." "Reckless?" I laughed bitterly. "Remember when she copied my science project and you punished me for making her cheat?" Behind him, Brianna leaned against the wall, sipping water like she was watching TV. I pointed at her. "Swear it. Look me in the eye and swear you didn't plant that money." She tilted her head. "Sure, I swear." The sarcasm dripped. Dad's hand closed around a glass on the table, and he hurled it. It shattered against the wall beside my head. Shards cut my arm and cheek. Blood ran warm down my skin. "Get out," he growled, "before I call the cops." "You made your choice," I said quietly. "You picked her." I turned to leave. That's when I heard her footsteps behind me. "Wait," Brianna called lightly. "You still don't get it." She smiled under the street lamp. "Nobody's ever going to believe you." "Say it again," I whispered. She leaned in. "I framed you. I planted the money." "Excuse me?" We froze. My mom stood at the edge of the porch, pale. "What did you just say?" Brianna stiffened. "I heard you," Mom said, voice shaking. "You admitted it." Dad stormed out. "Is that true?" Brianna snapped. "So what if it is? You needed someone to give up on, and it wasn't going to be me." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush us all. And for the first time since I was thrown out, I wasn't invisible. They finally saw her. The silence after Brianna's confession felt unreal. My mother staggered back like she'd been punched. Her hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling instantly. She looked at Brianna the way you look at a stranger who's been wearing your child's face. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You framed her." Dad didn't yell. That was the worst part. He just stared at Brianna, his jaw tight, his hands clenched like he was holding himself together by force alone. "You threw her out," Mom sobbed, turning to him. "We threw her out." I wiped the blood from my arm with my sleeve. It stung, but not as much as hearing them finally say it out loud. "You believed her," I said hoarsely. "You didn't even hesitate. You let everyone think I was a thief. You let me sleep on concrete." Brianna crossed her arms, trying to look strong. "Don't act shocked. You wanted a perfect daughter. I just made sure I stayed one. That was it." Mom pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "No," she said. "You don't get to hide anymore." She looked at me. "What do you want me to write?" I told her, slowly, clearly. She typed every word. A public apology. The truth. That I never stole anything. That Brianna framed me. That they failed me as parents. When she hit post, Dad didn't stop her. Notifications started buzzing almost immediately. Brianna's face drained of color. "You ruined my life," she whispered. Dad finally spoke. "No," he said coldly. "You ruined your own." I picked up my bag and walked past them. "I'm taking my room back," I said. "Not because you're sorry, because you owe me." No one argued. That night, I slept in a real bed again. Not forgiven, not healed, but no longer erased. And this time, if they ever tried to throw me away again, I knew exactly how to make the truth heard.